We've spoken before how the W123 could be Mercedes Benz's high watermark. It combined comfort, dignity and luxury with refinement, solid engineering and bulletproof reliability, not to mention a charming simplicity to it that cemented its status as a legend. So how do you follow on from a car like that? Well, Mercedes did so with the W124, its immediate successor. So is it a worthy replacement for the 123, or is it just trading on status? Well, we're going to take this very late E220 Cabrio for a drive and find out. But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition. So how do you improve on perfection? Mercedes had pretty much achieved it with the W123, and succeeding that car was quite a task. They started with the styling, employing Bruno Sacco as their chief designer, and Sacco came up with, I think, the perfect evolution of the 123. Being no doubt the 124 is still a Mercedes. You've still got that massive slatted grille, big rectangular headlights and the big bumpers, just more modern. The grille is now properly integrated into the bonnet rather than sitting separately. The headlights are more raked back to give them a more aerodynamic curved look to them. It's still a Mercedes, but it's just had a little modern nip and tuck to it. And that styling was more than just visually effective, it was aerodynamic as well. In fact, in its slipperiest guise, the W124 had a drag coefficient of just 0.28. That made it one of the most aerodynamic cars you could buy. That was partly aided by some clever engineering as well. Underbody plastic cladding channeled the air underneath it, so it cut through the air easier. Now that makes it more fuel efficient because you don't have to work as hard to cut through the air, and it made it more refined, it made it quieter. And that was another step up over the 123. The refinement. There was more sound deadening, there was more attention paid to making this car quieter when you're at speed. Now don't forget, we're in a car that's had its roof chopped off and been turned into a convertible, and yet driving along here at 50 miles an hour, it's almost completely silent. It's not just the refinement either, the look and feel of the interior was updated. Again, it's still very much a Mercedes. You've still got this massive centre console with these very simple switches that you know full well are still going to work for decades to come. There are a few more rounded edges, there are more modern plastics, there's a bit more ruched leather in the door cards and shinier, more modern wood trim. Again, this is still the same lovely cabin that still feels solid and is still a lovely place to be, but it's more modern, it's more refined. And there was clever engineering underneath the 124 as well. In order to offer the pillarless coupe and of course the convertible, Mercedes put over 100 kilos of extra strengthening and body stiffening underneath the car to avoid any flex or scuttle shake when you're up to speed. Right, now we've talked about the engineering of this convertible, given it's a gorgeous day today, let's get the roof down. Lovely. Now we've got that open air feeling going on, but still so much refinement. There's hardly any wind at all. And it wasn't just structural work that improved the 124 over its predecessor. Mercedes saw that BMW still had a loyal audience for its sporty nature, its handling, its planted balance in the corners. And the 123, for all its brilliance, simply couldn't match a BMW in the handling stakes. With the 124 though, they put more of a focus on its cornering ability. First of all, borrowing the multi-link rear suspension setup from the 190E. At the front we got separate shocks and springs, but with rubber top mounts to try and retain some refinement and some ride comfort. And how does all of that translate to this big executive car on a windy road? Well, this is a heavy four-seater convertible. It's well over 1.5 tons in this trim, but it doesn't feel it. It's balanced, it's composed, there's minimal body roll, and it doesn't feel like you're trying to sail a canal boat down here. It really does control its weight and its size incredibly well. Don't go thinking this is any sort of sports car because it's still big and heavy and soft, but if you need to get a move on cross country, the 124, even in cabrio guise, is a really rather composed beast. Chuck it in. That's totally controllable. If I tried to go around that corner with that level of commitment in a 123, I'd have been out the driver's window. And for as much as it is a sportier handler than the 123, it's still a wonderful cruiser. These seats are more modern. They're a bit firmer, they hold you a bit tighter than those springy bus-like seats that you got in the 123, but they're still easy to relax in. The ride is just a touch firmer, particularly in the convertible. There is a tiny little bit of fidgeting over bumps, but it's easy to forget. Just cruise along. It's still soft, it's still refined, it's still comfortable. It's exactly as a Mercedes should be. So the handling and the driving experience were improved then, and so were the engines. The carburetted engines from the 123 weren't going to cut it, so every engine in the W124 got fuel injection. There's your typical mix of 4 cylinders, as well as a 2.6 and 3 litre 6-cylinder petrol engine that more than matched BMW's 6 pots for power, noise and performance. Not to mention, you could also get the 124 with a mix of 4, 5 and 6-cylinder diesel engines. Torquey, pretty much unburstable units, one of which resulted in a taxi in Germany achieving 1,000,000 kilometres on its original engine. It was a car that you could depend on. A survey in 1995 by ADAC, which is Germany's equivalent of the RAC or the AA, surveyed 4 to 6-year-old used cars and found that the Mercedes W124 was 40% more reliable than the Audi 100, a car which in itself didn't exactly have a reputation for breaking down anyway. Mercedes had moved on and evolved the formula with the W124, but they hadn't lost the main thing that made the 123 so brilliant, that bomb-proof dependability. The eclectic range of engines, body styles, trim levels meant the 124 was a runaway success, and all in all Mercedes sold 2.56 million of these cars. It was also the first generation to be officially badged E-Class, a name that continues over 30 years on. It's easy to assume the 124 was just a mild facelift of a 123, but actually it's got a lot to be proud of. You could argue that this car lost some of its purity compared to the W123. The more modern styling that's been altered, the more modern interior, and the lean towards the sportier handling. And I'd probably agree with you. But as a car in its own right, a classic to buy, own and enjoy today, the W124 is a wonderful experience. It's a practical load lugger, an executive mile muncher, and a stylish countryside cruiser. If anything, it's more accomplished than the 123 because suddenly it can do a bit of the twisty stuff as well. It might not be the icon, the much loved 123, and some people will ignore this car for that. But the joke's on them, because in many ways the W124 really is the best, made even better. This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.